Hi there, I'm Will, Technical Director at Trust Systems. I think one of the most interesting things about infrastructure is that nobody really notices it until something breaks. That's usually the moment everyone suddenly becomes interested in networks. It's when a building management system suddenly disappears offline, or operators lose visibility, or a cyber incident starts spreading across an environment, or an outage stops being an IT problem and starts affecting real operations. That's when infrastructure becomes very visible. But in reality, the best infrastructure should almost disappear into the background. Quiet, reliable, predictable, and operationally stable. That to me is what resilience actually looks like. And that's really what I want to talk about today. At Trust, what we focus on isn't just deploying technology for the sake of it. We focus on building operational backbones that keep critical environments running continuously, quietly, and reliably behind the scenes. Sometimes that's network infrastructure, sometimes it's monitoring or security, operational control, visualization platforms, and virtualization platforms. But ultimately, this isn't really a talk about products. It's a talk about operational resilience, what that means in modern environments, why it matters more than ever, and why a lot of traditional approaches simply don't scale anymore. Operational environments today are becoming dramatically more complicated, and not because technology is bad. In fact, technology is better than it's ever been. The problem is complexity. Everything we use now is connected to everything else. We've got legacy systems sitting beside modern platforms, cloud dependencies, remote access everywhere, operational technology and IT converging together. AI-driven workloads changing traffic patterns and compute demand almost overnight, and most environments were never actually designed for this level of interdependency. At the same time, tolerance for downtime has basically vanished. 10 years ago, an outage might have been inconvenient. Today, an outage can stop production, impact operations, create security exposure, trigger compliance failures, and damage reputations, sometimes all at once. And one of the biggest things I still see organisations struggling with is operating reactively. They're waiting for alerts, waiting for tickets, waiting for users to complain, and waiting for systems to fail visibly. But by the time users notice an issue, the problem has usually existed underneath the surface for quite a while already. That operational model just doesn't scale anymore. Modern environments need visibility built in from the start, control built in from the start, and operational awareness built in from the start, not bolted on later after problems appear. I think resilience is one of those words that gets misunderstood quite a lot. People hear resilience and immediately think redundancy. Dual power supplies, backup circuits, HA firewalls, secondary links. And yes, redundancy absolutely matters. But redundancy alone doesn't automatically create resilience, because unmanaged complexity just creates more complicated ways to fail. Real resilience is more about predictability, simplicity, visibility, recovery speed, and control. One of the biggest risks we see now is operational complexity itself. Every undocumented dependency, every workaround and temporary fix that became permanent. Every extra platform layered on top of another platform, and all of that increases operational fragility, especially in environments where uptime is critical. One principle we focus on heavily is reducing failure domains. If something breaks, how far does the impact actually spread? Can the issue be isolated? Can operations continue? Can teams still maintain visibility and control? That's the difference between a resilient environment and a fragile one. A resilient environment degrades gracefully. A fragile one collapses dramatically. Networks themselves have fundamentally changed too. They're no longer just transport. They've become the operational nervous system of the organisation. Everything depends on them now. Security systems, monitoring platforms, building management, operational telemetry, remote access, automation, and AI workloads. Everything. So when we design network infrastructure today, the question is no longer Does it connect things together? The real question is, how does this environment behave under stress? We routinely stress test building management systems, but how many organisations stress test their actual network infrastructure? Because resilient network design is about much more than connectivity. It's about reducing unnecessary complexity, creating meaningful segmentation boundaries, limiting lateral movement opportunities, minimising failure domains, and making environments operationally understandable. One phrase we use internally quite a lot is this: a resilient network should fail safely. Because failure will happen. Hardware fails, software bugs happen, humans make mistakes. That part is unavoidable. The goal isn't pretending failure never occurs. The goal is making sure the environment can absorb disruption without becoming operationally chaotic. Security has changed massively as well. It's no longer just a perimeter problem. The network itself has effectively become part of the security control plane. And the challenge organisations now face is that operational environments are deeply interconnected. That creates enormous opportunity, but it also creates enormous exposure. One poorly segmented environment can create a very large blast radius during an incident. So security can't just be a firewall sitting at the edge anymore. It has to be embedded into the operational architecture itself. That means segmentation, identity-aware access, secure remote connectivity, continuous monitoring, visibility into east-west traffic, threat detection, and containment strategies. But importantly, security shouldn't obstruct operations. It should enable resilient operations. Because ultimately the goal isn't simply stopping attacks, the real goal is preventing operational disruption. That's a very different mindset. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, resilience never comes from one individual product. It comes from how infrastructure, monitoring, security and operations work together as a single operational ecosystem. One of the biggest operational risks we see today is unnecessary complexity. Too many layers, too many dependencies, too many failure points. That's one of the reasons we work with platforms like scale computing. Because simpler environments are generally more resilient environments. Smaller failure domains, faster recovery, and lower operational overhead. Visibility is another critical piece, because proactive operations are only possible when you can actually see what's happening in real time. Good monitoring isn't just about showing failures, it's about spotting warning signs before failures occur. Rising latency, environmental instability, packet loss, and abnormal utilization. The organisations that identify these indicators early are often the organisations that avoid outages altogether. And the resilience also depends heavily on operational coordination, because during incidents, one of the biggest challenges is fragmented awareness between teams. Infrastructure teams, security teams, facilities teams, and operations teams. Platforms like ViewAll help create shared situational awareness, so everyone is working from the same operational picture in real time. And where teams share aligned visibility, decision-making becomes faster, clearer, and far more effective. The reality is, nobody really notices infrastructure when it's working properly. Nobody celebrates stable networks. Nobody congratulates resilient operations. Nobody talks about the outage that never happened. But every modern organisation depends on those foundations every single day. And as environments become more connected, more operationally critical, and more complex, quiet resilience becomes one of the most valuable capabilities an organisation can build. At Trust, that's what we focus on, not just deploying technology, but creating operational confidence, infrastructure that is resilient, secure, visible, and controlled, and reliable enough to disappear quietly into the background where it belongs. Because the most effective infrastructure is the infrastructure you never have to think about.